Bluntly, it's not at the top of their agenda this week. They don't particularly seem to care. They are more invested in the Jeffrey Epstein files and Donald Trump's decision not to release them. That's the main kind of thing animating the kind of MAGA masses at the moment. Certainly, when the US was bombing Iran and there was talk about continuing support for Ukraine, that felt like the moment in which MAGA's concentration was particularly on foreign policy and a kind of a more isolationist America, advocating a more isolationist approach to foreign affairs. At the moment, they seem to be concentrating on Jeffrey Epstein.
Look, we had that story overnight, and it's forced a clarification from Donald Trump today, who's confirmed that Volodymyr Zelensky shouldn't try to target Moscow after Trump announced billions of dollars of US weapons would be sent to help Ukraine. They go via NATO, of course. Here is Trump talking to reporters outside the White House a short while ago.
Well, at the end of 50 days, if we don't have a deal, it's going to be too bad.
Should Zelensky get more aggressive?
The tariffs are going to go on and other sanctions go on.
Should Zelensky target Moscow? Should Zelensky target Moscow, sir? Should Zelensky target Moscow or deeper into Russia?
No, he shouldn't target Moscow.
Is that why you gave him more weapons, though?
Yeah, basically Trump revealed, or the Financial Times revealed, that Donald Trump had supposedly asked President Zelensky whether he had enough weapons to bomb Moscow. I don't know what Zelensky's reply was, but maybe that prompted the arrival of so much commitment from Donald Trump, Patriot missiles included. But he's rowing back from this today, George, it's safe to say.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty escalatory if you had the President of the United States encouraging another country to send missiles at not only Moscow, he also said St. Petersburg, apparently in that call. He appears to pretty decisively rode back from that. Nevertheless, the tariffs threat is interesting, and there has been a big shift in policy, potentially linked to Melania Trump behind the scenes, playing a pivotal role in persuading the president to perhaps come to Ukraine's aid.
Yeah, she was brought up, wasn't she, in Yugoslavia? And Trump talked about having great phone calls with Vladimir Putin, and reporting back to Melania. I think we've got there. I think we've managed to get there. And then she'd say, oh, well, there's, been XYZ bombing going on here. And Trump would, I'm totally paraphrasing, but Trump would say, well, obviously not. So I quite like that rod of Melania, if that is all true. How's this gone down with these sort of MAGA massive over there who are very concerned about US involvement in Ukraine or in any war, to be honest? These weapons, of course, are being paid for by NATO nations, not the US included in that. It's essentially quite a good business deal for Donald Trump. Billions of pounds, he said it was worth. Does it satisfy the MAGA movement? Because this is the US making money off defence going through NATO to Ukraine, not directly from the United States.
Bluntly, it's not at the top of their agenda this week. They don't particularly seem to care. They are more invested in the Jeffrey Epstein files and Donald Trump's decision not to release them. That's the main kind of thing animating the kind of MAGA masses at the moment. Certainly, when the US was bombing Iran and there was talk about continuing support for Ukraine, that felt like the moment in which MAGA's concentration was particularly on foreign policy and a kind of a more isolationist America, advocating a more isolationist approach to foreign affairs. At the moment, they seem to be concentrating on Jeffrey Epstein. I think it's worth noting as well that those kind of MAGA critics or outriders of the administration tend to be the people, like Laura Loomer or Marjorie Taylor Greene, who might have fancied their chances of getting a role in the administration, and in the end, the invite didn't come. So perhaps they have cause to feel slightly bitter, in the same way as, in the UK, you've got Labour backbenchers who are more likely to kind of carp from the sidelines if they didn't get a ministerial job.
We've just been talking about Jeffrey Epstein there, and the latest Republican lawmakers moving to block a Democratic effort to force the release of the Epstein files. I've just had quite an interesting discussion with Alan Dershowitz, who, as you'll know, is a US law professor, but also has represented both Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein in separate cases. And he has denied the existence of a client list and said actually those files on Jeffrey Epstein, details of the accusers and the accused, they are being locked down, effectively suppressed by two judges in New York. Because it is not in anyone's interest, these judges feel, to release the names of the accusers or the accused. And they went on to say that the accused, none of them currently hold a public office, which shouldn't forgive anything, but that's just some interesting context there for you. I just wonder whether this will run out of road. We've been talking about it over 5 days or so. Will the Epstein upset die down? Where does it go from here if Republicans block this Democratic effort to release the files?
Well, the problem is that at the moment they've tried to kind of criticize Pam Bondi and members of the Trump administration without coming for Trump himself, but Trump has very much kind of stood by her and was saying today that if anyone was to blame, it was Obama and Biden. I mean, I don't know how he managed to reach that conclusion, but nevertheless, it shows that he's not kind of moving. And to be honest, in MAGA world, what Trump says is law. That's gospel. So I think it will eventually die down if Trump decides not to release it, because he was the one who kind of tended to fuel the conspiracy theories when he was outside the White House. And if he decides it's not a conspiracy theory now he's in the White House, then what he says is law.
Yeah,
really.
I suppose so. Look, here is Donald Trump speaking just an hour or so ago. He explained what briefing he's had from his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who's been at the heart of the discussion on the Epstein files.
A very, very quick briefing.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, we went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release. Yeah.
There we go. That was Donald Trump kind of shutting it down a little bit. Whatever she feels is appropriate, she must release, he said. Let's move on. Donald Trump's confirmed that when he meets Keir Starmer in his upcoming trip to Scotland, they will refine the US-UK trade deal. Trump plans to visit his Turnberry and Aberdeen golf properties at the end of July, but it's not an official state visit, is it, George? So we won't know what they talk about. Will they really talk business and find solutions for this trade deal? There's, any kind of number of things that they might discuss about. It's just that we won't get or be party to those discussions, will we?
Oh, I'm sure they will discuss business. I mean, bear in mind that Trump sees the golf course as an extension of the White House and does much of his best work there as he sees it. I mean, I've got an interview today in the Times, which is with his kind of caddy and golfing partner for 25 years, who says as such, that is where, he'll hit a shot and then take calls. So Starmer going all the way up to Aberdeen to go and meet him is nothing out of the usual as far as Trump will see it. He regards his golf courses in New Jersey and Virginia and Florida and now in Scotland as, part of his working office. So I'm sure they will be discussing the trade deal with the UK. I think the outstanding area is on steel, and particularly concerning for the UK is threat to bring in further tariffs on pharmaceuticals, which would, penalise a pretty strong British industry, which has a lot of exports to the US.
What do you make of the optics of Starmer meeting him in Scotland? It is, of course, ahead of the big fancy UK state visit in September. What do you think of that? The sort of meeting in Scotland.
I think Starmer would be pleased that it could be slightly further away from large protests in London, which is the same with the official state visit, which is happening in September. That's happening in Windsor. Ostensibly, that's because there is refurbishment going on at Buckingham Palace, but it's not unhelpful that that means that Trump will not be in London, where you would imagine there would be a large protest. So again, having talks with Trump in a kind of remote corner of Scotland, protesters have managed to get onto his golf courses fairly recently, but it's visually and not going to be as striking for Trump to see crowds of people protesting his arrival. So I don't think that's a bad thing for as far as Salma is concerned.
Well, look, really good to speak to you. Thank you very much. George Grylls, Washington correspondent for The Times, with your daily dose of the Trump dump there. Thanks, George. Good to speak to you.